Good afternoon. Welcome back to Passion World Talk Radio Network, a wholly owned subsidiary of Global Media Network LLC. Educate, enlighten, entertain, and let's not forget forgetfulness. And on today's program, we're going to discuss the U.S. Protest Law Tracker. What it follows state and federal legislation introduced since January 2017 that restricts the right to peaceful assembly. Now, we just did a program about peaceful assembly and students protest it. You should know that 45 states have considered it. 345 bills, 50 are inactive, and 40 are pending. HR 2272, blocking financial aid to students who commit a quote riot, RIOT, unquote, offense, would bar federal financial assistance and loan forgiveness for any student convicted of a crime in connection with a quote riot, unquote. The bar would apply to students convicted of quote rioting, unquote, or A, inciting a riot, B, organizing, promoting, encouraging participation in, or carrying on a riot, C, committing any act of violence in furtherance of a riot, D, aiding or abetting any person in inciting or participating and carrying on a riot or committing any act of violence in furtherance of a riot. Many states define riot broadly enough to cover peaceful protest activity. Many also have laws criminalizing incitement to riot that cover protective expression. The bill would bar financial aid and loan forgiveness for students convicted under such provisions. Comment: is that like the riot that was incited by the former administration's first run at the presidency, where that person incited people to riot and storm the U.S. Capitol, killing security policemen and with the intent to harm and do violence to the senators and congressmen who were then occupying the White House? End of comment. As written, the bill would also bar financial aid and loan forgiveness to any students convicted of any offense related to organizing, promoting, encouraging a riot, or aiding and abetting incitement or participation in a riot, which would cover an even wider range of expressive conduct, from sharing a social media post to cheering on demonstrators in a protest that was deemed a riot. Comment: is that anything like the current administration's previous incitement to those people who rioted in the U.S. Capitol? And then, when he became president a second time, pardoned these same people who committed violence and killed people in his name? End of comment. Status pending. Introduced March 21st, 2025. Issues: camp and protest, riot, limit on public benefits. U.S. Federal HR 2273, providing for visa revocation and deportation of non-citizens who commit a riot-related offense. Comment: does that also include people who have already been described as violent and anti-USA? Does that mean we get to export these people, even though they've been pardoned by the present administration? I really wish you would make up your mind, because it seems like to me you're breaking your own law. End of comment. Would require the Secretary of State to revoke the visa of and make deportable a non-citizen student, scholar, teacher, or specialist convicted of a crime in connection with a riot. Under the bill, individuals in the U.S. on an F1, J1, or M1 visa would have their visas revoked and would be deportable if they were convicted of rioting or inciting a riot, organizing, promoting, encouraging, participating in, or carrying on a riot, committing any act of violence in furtherance of a riot, aiding or abetting any person in inciting or participating in or carrying on a riot, or committing any act of violence in furtherance of a riot. Comment: is he taking away our freedom of our speech and the right to assemble peacefully? And what about the agitators that people like him place within a peaceful demonstration to incite a riot? Are these agitators also included in deporting immediately with U.S. or non-U.S. citizen? Additional comment: is that like getting rid of people who are lawyers for these people, i.e., immigration lawyers who were born and hold U.S. citizenship fully under the birthright? Does that also include them? Must be nice to be a hypocrite. End of comment. Many states define riot broadly enough to cover peaceful protest activity. Many also have broad laws criminalizing incitement to riot that cover protective expression. The bill would provide for the deportation of foreign students, scholars, and others convicted under such provisions. Comment: does that mean we have the right to get rid of and deport those descendants of all the Nazi scientists that were brought to the United States after World War II, these fascists who designed missiles for Hitler, and then they were brought to the United States by then President Roosevelt and his ilk to help us get established in the space program? End of comment. As written, the bill will also provide for the deportation if convicted of any offense related to organizing, promoting, encouraging a riot, or aiding or abetting incitement or participation in a riot, which could cover an even wider range of expressive conduct, from sharing a social media post to cheering on demonstrators in a protest that was deemed a riot. See status pending. Introduced March 21st, 2025, campus protest riot. U.S. Federal 1017, new federal criminal penalties for protests near pipelines, would create a federal felony offense that could apply to protests of plan or operation of pipelines. The bill will broadly criminalize under federal law knowingly and willfully vandalizing, tampering with, disrupting the operation or construction of, or preventing the operation or construction of a gas pipeline. A range of peaceful activities could be deemed disrupting: the construction of a pipeline from a rally that obstructs a road used by construction equipment to a lawsuit challenging a pipeline's permit or zoning approval. Comment: police state. Certainly our freedom of press, freedom of speech, right to assemble peacefully is being threatened and destroyed by this present administration. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? The bill does not define disrupt such that even a brief delay would seemingly be covered. Further, the underlying law provides that any attempt or conspiracy to commit the offense would be punishable. Comment: what happens if the good guys do this? Are they also punishable by the same bill? Or do they have entitlements like the present administration has entitlements? As such, individuals as well as organizations that engage in the planning or facilitation of a protest that is deemed to disrupt pipeline construction could be covered. The offense would be punishable by up to 20 years, comment, in an El Salvadorian prison, unquote, uncomment, and a fine of up to $250,000 for an individual or $500,000 for an organization. Comment, does it apply equally across the board, the good, the bad, and the indifferent? Status pending. March 13th, 2025. Protest supporters or funders, infrastructure, U.S. Federal. 9A2. Potential penalties for universities based on protest policies. Would make federal accreditation of colleges and universities and then their access to federal funds contingent on the institution policy of responding to protest. Excuse me, comment. I thought that these colleges were free to anybody who had the money or the means to come to college. Are we saying that the present administration now has the right to withdraw their accreditation? And what gives the present administration that right? They don't know anything about education. That's why they're getting rid of it, because they don't know. And what you don't know will hurt you and destroy any future for your descendants. End of comment. Under the No Tax Dollars for College Encampments Act of 2024, universities would have to regularly disclose how they respond to campus incidents of civil disturbance, defined to include a demonstration, riot, or strike, and their accreditation would be linked to such policies and practices. The bill sponsored cited pro-Palestinian campus protests as motivation for the bill. Be introduced the same bill in 2024. Status pending. March 12, 2025. Campus protest riot. 2065. Harsh penalties for protesters who conceal their identity. Would make a federal crime subject to a lengthy prison sentence to wear a mask or other disguise while protesting in an intimidating or impressive way. Comment, are we referring to the KKK or other racial groups that wear hoods over their heads? Does this also include other groups who may be violently opposed to the rights of all citizens in the United States of America? End of comment. Under the Unmasking Hamas Act, anyone in disguise, including while wearing a mask, who injures, oppresses, threatens, or intimidates any person exercising their constitutional rights could be sentenced to up to 15 years in prison, as well as fined. Excuse me, comment. Does that mean the people who incited a riot inside the Capitol would also be fined and imprisoned in Salvador for doing what they did in the White House, in the Capitol, for their supposedly peaceful demonstration, bringing weapons of mass destruction with them inside and then pardoned by the present administration? I'm getting confused. Will somebody please straighten us out? End of comment. What is meant by disguise other than it includes a mask? The bill's substantive provisions are identical to the Unmasking Antifa Act, which lawmakers have introduced in several previous sessions. Sponsors of the bill made clear that it is a response to pro-Palestinian protesters, some of whom have worn masks to revolt retaliation. Is that comment like the KKK so nobody can recognize them and report them in for unlawful acts of violence against African Americans? Just wondering. End of comment. U.S. Federal. 937. Barring student protester from federal loans and loan forgiveness. Would ex-protester from federal financial aid and loan forgiveness if they commit any crime at a campus protest. The bill will cover someone convicted of any offense under any federal or state law. Comment. Well, then how come those rioters who were convicted for the Capitol riot were forgiven? Isn't that an oxymoron? Didn't you just contradict yourself? I mean, these people were convicted. Or are they above the law? End of comment. As such, a student convicted of even a nonviolent state law misdemeanor at a campus protest, such as failing to disperse, would be deemed ineligible for federal student loans. They would also be ineligible for having existing federal loans forgiven, canceled, waived, or modified. The sponsor of this bill said it was in response to pro-Palestinian protests at colleges and universities. Comment: really? I don't believe it. They're linking into everybody or anybody who protests, nullifying our right to speech and our right to assembly. Who are they kidding? And it goes on and on. So go over to icnl.org and look it up, because I think you will not be surprised how the current politicians have twisted U.S. constitutional law to fit them and what they believe is wrong. I don't think they really asked anybody else. These men think they know it all. And guess what? This is comment and opinion. They don't. They have become gods in their own eyes. Thank you very much for listening to Lest We Forget Historical U.S. Protest Law Tracker. Something for you to look at and make sure that you or your son and daughter or your niece and nephew or a friend or a peer or even your 98-year-old grandmother is not caught protesting because everyone's considering having it considered against the law. Thank you very much for listening. If you want to see this and get an idea of how much of your rights are being taken away without anybody knowing about it, look it up. U.S. Protest Law Tracker. It will take you to the right place and see what they don't want you to be aware of. This has been done by your administration now and last year when they were making plans. You can see this all over again at https://passionworldtalkradio.com. Scroll down to come to State of Current Affairs, click on the link. It'll take you to a page, a Google link, click on that, and it'll take you into the belly of the beast of YouTube, where you can see all these podcasts, which are important to you to know about. Ignorance is no longer a good excuse. This program is brought to you by Ruby.ai. Check it out, AIwithlillian.com. It'll take you to Ruby. Take a look at the testimonials, watch the demonstration, and then sign up at AIwithlillian.com. It will take you to a page. You can sign up for a monthly subscription. Also, another program is called Conscious Research Solution. Check us out. PassionWorldTalkRadio.com/research made simple blog. There you can see some of your pain points, how to solve them. And while you're there, schedule yourself for a free consultation. The first 15 minutes is free. Follow the directions. Thank you very much. And if you want to see an all-women run operated internet talk radio station that's been up for 19 years, and you want to make sure that it's going to be on for another 19 years, go over to Passionate World Radio, PassionatWorldTalkRadio.com/donation and give. We're unique and we're always on top. Always. Thank you very much for listening and have a grand weekend.